The Joint Committee on Higher Education will come to order. We are welcoming here people who are here in person and online. I am so glad to be here today to co-chair this hearing with my terrific higher education co-chair Dave Rogers, who is on his way, and our esteemed vice chair, Vice Chair Gentile, who is going to stand in for the chair, and we are all partners here in the House and the Senate. Thank you so much, Vice Chair. Today's hearing is focused on two late filed bills received by the committee. These are S.2927 and H.5012, an act relative to students accessing food and nutritional information. They are filed by our terrific colleagues, Senator Joan Lovely and Representative Badger. We are looking forward to hearing testimony and learning more about these bills. A little bit of logistics. For folks in the room, we would be so grateful if you'd silence your cell phones. For those joining on Teams, if you could just remember to remain on mute. Even 6 years after the pandemic, we struggle with these. We are first going to hear testimony from people who pre-registered to participate, and then we'll hear from individuals in person who signed up today, and in accordance with joint rules, we're going to take elected officials out of turn. Testifiers are respectfully asked to keep remarks to 3 minutes or fewer, and if you're part of a panel, we suggest that each member of that panel has 3 minutes. As always, the committee welcomes additional written testimony, which can be submitted via email to both Chair Rogers and myself. Written testimony will be made publicly available, consistent with committee rules. Before we begin, I would like to recognize and thank my Senate committee members. We have ranking member Senator Kelly Dooner, who actually left for a vote. Thank you, Senator. I'm coming from the vote, and the senator left for the vote. We also have Senator Pavel Payano online, and we also have Senator Michael Moore, who is between hearings and will be here, and Senator Paul Mark. Thank you so much to my colleagues in the Senate for your work on this committee. I'm going to pass it now to my co-chair, Vice Chair Gentile, for his welcome and recognition of his colleagues.
Well, thank you, Chair Comerford. We have with us today Representative Michelle Badger and Representative Suzanne Whips, and Representative Michael Soter.
Thank you so much. And without further ado, I'd like to welcome up the first panel, and it's an in-person panel. And I believe, Representative Badger, you're going to headline this. Michelle Badger, thank you so much. We have then with Representative Michelle Badger, Brandon Weisbrod, Dr. Nan Du, and Vanessa Weisbrod. Thank you so much for taking the time to testify and file this bill.
Good afternoon, Hi. Vice Chair Gentile, Chair Rogers is not here, but
he's coming.
He is coming. We're happy. Yeah. And fellow members of the Higher Education Committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today and taking me out of order for the opportunity to testify in support of H.5013 and S.2928, an act relative to student access, food, and nutritional information. The intent of this legislation is simple but important: to ensure that children with celiac disease can fully participate in universal free school breakfast and lunch programs. Like some who will testify today, I myself have celiac disease. I was diagnosed 4 years ago, though it took nearly 10 years for my diagnosis. While that journey is important, what matters most today is that there is no cure for celiac disease. The only treatment is strict, lifelong adherence to a gluten-free diet. Gluten-free foods are significantly more expensive than their conventional counterparts, whether it's bread, pasta, or everyday snacks. And unlike gluten preferences, this is not optional. For individuals with celiac disease, consuming gluten triggers an autoimmune response that damages the body and can lead to cancer and other diseases. The promise of universal free school meals is right in its name, universal. However, many students with celiac disease are currently unable to participate safely. In some school districts, menus and ingredients information are not consistently or clearly provided. Without transparency, families cannot confidently determine whether meals are safe for their children. As a result, many parents and guardians are forced to opt out of school meals altogether. Despite the program's intent to reduce costs and ensure access to nutrition to all students, while universal meals are designed to save families approximately $1,200 to $1,400 per child per year, families managing celiac disease often do not experience this savings. Instead, they face higher grocery costs and are not able to participate. The legislation is about equity. It ensures that students with celiac disease are not left behind and that families can trust the meals being provided in our schools. When someone is glutened, it is significant whether they have a significant response causes damage. And if they do have a significant response, that means days lost going to school, a lack of focus or attention, and much more. So thank you for your time and your attention to this important topic, and I respectfully ask for a favorable vote for H.5013, S.2927. And now I'm going to turn this over to Brandon.
Thank you so much, Representative.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Weisbrod. I'm 12 years old and I live in Needham, Massachusetts. I have celiac disease, which means even a tiny amount of gluten can make me very sick, and for me, I barf. I'm here today to ask you guys to support the SNACK Act, and that has 2 C's, because it will help kids like me get the information we need to stay safe at school. Food is a big part of my life because I'm a soccer player. I play for both my town team and my club team, and I practice or play almost every day to stay healthy, perform my best, and stay buff.
All right. This is
So
good.
I need to fuel my body with safe food. I'm very lucky to attend a Needham public school. My school does a great job communicating with families about gluten-free meals. My parents and I can easily find information online about what food is available and how it's prepared. We can also easily reach our cafeteria manager and dietitian when we have questions, because their contact information is posted online. Because of that, I feel safe eating at school, and I can focus on learning and playing soccer and staying buff again, instead of worrying about getting sick, you know what I mean. But every student doesn't have that awesome experience. Through the celiac community in Boston Children's Hospital, I've met other kids who've had a really hard time figuring out and what they can safely eat at school. One of my mentors from Boston Children's Hospital has supported me a lot in learning how to advocate for myself and others. But he lives in another school district and he struggles what to know what food is safe at his high school because the information isn't just easy to find. For students with celiac disease, this can be really stressful. Eating the wrong thing doesn't just make us uncomfortable, it can make us very sick and affect our ability to learn, play sports, be happy, and participate in school like everybody else. In soccer, before every game, you get a game plan. We know where we're supposed to go and where we're supposed to be on the field, and what a role is. My role, obviously, to score all the goals. Imagine trying to play a game with no plan at all. You wouldn't know what to do or where to go. For students with celiac disease, not having clear information about food at school feels a lot like that. We're trying to do the right thing, but we don't have the information we need to stay safe. This bill would help solve that problem by making sure schools post clear information online about gluten-free and allergen-free meals, including menus, safety protocols, and who students can contact for help. I'm lucky my school does this already because every student in Massachusetts should have the same chance to feel safe eating at school. Kids like me already have to play defense against gluten every day. Passing this bill won't change that, but it will make school a lot safer for us. Thank you for listening. I'm going to pass it to my mom now.
That was, actually, everybody should give a little round of applause. You know, it's not every day that applause breaks out for testimony. That's how powerful your words are and how inspiring they are. Let's hear from your mom. Doctor.
I wish I had the honor of being his mom, but instead
No,
I'm going to
please.
talk a little bit about the research around the bill that Brandon just eloquently kind of described the need for.
Thank you, Doctor.
Of course, but good afternoon. My name is Dr. Du. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist at Boston Children's Hospital with the Celiac Disease Program. My research primarily focuses on improving care and access to resources for children living with celiac disease. Celiac disease, as Brandon has eloquently described, is an autoimmune condition in which the ingestion of gluten triggers immune-mediated damage to the small intestine. The only treatment is a strict gluten-free diet for life. For children, the treatment must work in every environment where they eat, including school. My colleague and I recently conducted a study examining barriers to participation in school breakfast and lunch programs in Massachusetts among children with celiac disease that was published in the journal Pediatric Gastroenterology and Nutrition. And what we found was concerning. More than half of the children with celiac disease in our survey did not participate in school meal programs because families were concerned about whether the cafeteria could safely prepare gluten-free meals. Even more striking, among families experiencing food insecurity, half reported that their children had never participated in free school breakfast or lunch programs. In other words, even when meals are available and free, many families still feel that they cannot safely access them. So one of the most consistent barriers that we identified in our study was around communication. Many parents reported that they could not easily find information about gluten-free options, how meals were prepared, who to contact when they had questions about them. And when families lack that information, they often choose the safest option available to them, which is to avoid school meals entirely. This is particularly concerning because school meal programs are designed to ensure that children are well-nourished and ready to learn across Massachusetts. With children with medically necessary dietary restrictions, and if they can't access these programs, it really creates an unintended gap in equity. The legislation being discussed today addresses one of the key barriers that we identified in our research: access to information. By requiring schools to post clear, centralized information about gluten-free and allergy-free meals, including menus, food safety protocols, and contact information, families will have a reliable way to determine whether school meals are safe for their child, and ideally increase their comfort around their children receiving gluten-free food in school. And so research often identifies problems. What is encouraging about this legislation is that it often offers a practical solution informed by the very barriers families have described to us in this study. Thank you for the opportunity to share our research and for your consideration of this important bill. I'm now going to pass it on to Brandon's mom.
Brandon's mom, all right. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Dr. Dew, and thank you, Brandon. Good afternoon. My name is Vanessa Weisbrod, and I'm the Chief Education Officer at the Celiac Disease Foundation. I'm also Brandon's mom and a person living with celiac disease myself. In my professional role, I work with thousands of families in Massachusetts and across the country navigating life with celiac disease. I also work closely with physicians, dietitians, and school districts to help ensure that children with celiac disease can safely participate in school meals and every part of school life. As you've heard today, celiac is an autoimmune condition, and the only treatment is a strict, lifelong gluten-free diet. For children, that treatment has to work everywhere they eat, including at school. Through our work at the Foundation, we regularly hear from families who want their children to participate in school meals, but they struggle to find the information they need to determine whether those meals are safe. Parents tell us they spend hours searching school websites, emailing staff, or piecing together information from multiple sources, often very late at night or just as their kid is walking out the door to go to school, just so they can understand if they can eat that day at school. Massachusetts has taken an important step forward by implementing universal school meals, which has made it much easier for students to access breakfast and lunch at school. However, for students with celiac disease and other medically restricted diets, access is not just about whether the meals are free. It's about whether those meals are safe and whether families can find information they need to make that determination. To better understand this challenge, we recently reviewed how Massachusetts school districts communicate meal information online. We looked at 294 public school districts across the Commonwealth. What we found was encouraging in some ways, but it also revealed some important gaps. More than 2/3 of districts publish nutrition or allergen information online, usually through digital menu systems. However, only about 17% clearly communicate gluten-free menus or accommodations on their websites. In other words, schools often have the information families need, but it is not always presented in a way that makes medically necessary diets easy to navigate. The good news is that the underlying data already exists. Schools participating in the National School Lunch Program are already required under federal law to maintain detailed nutrition documentation, including ingredient lists, standardized recipes, and product labels. The SNACK Act does not ask schools to create a new system or collect new data. It simply focuses on making existing information accessible to families through a school webpage or a digital menu platform that many districts are already using. In districts where this information is easy to find, families are far more confident allowing their children to participate in school meal programs. As Brandon shared, we are fortunate to live in a community where communication around gluten-free meals is strong. But every student in Massachusetts deserves the same opportunity to feel safe eating at school. For children with celiac disease, a gluten-free diet is not a preference, it's their medical treatment. The information families need already exists. The SNACK Act simply ensures they can find it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today and for consideration of supporting this bill.
Thank you so much to the panel. Representative Badger, thank you, and Senator Lovely for bringing this important bill. It does strike me as such an opportunity to continue to build on the access and opportunity of universal school meals to make sure that they work for everyone. So what you're doing here through this bill will help folks even beyond those in the celiac community, right? Because it'll be about equity for everyone partaking in these meals. I really appreciate the vision behind this. Questions from my great colleagues?
Well, go ahead.
Oh, no, Mr. Chair, please,
Well,
and then
either
we'll
way.
go.
Well, I just want to say that it might look like we're holding a hearing of the Joint Committee on Higher Education, but really this is the Brandon Show.
Oh, I like that better, yeah.
Great. The SNACK Act with 2 C's. I really want to know how many goals you have for the soccer team so far. But on a more serious note, thank you. You all did a great job, and you have a great champion in Representative Badger, and your testimony is very powerful and important. And Brandon, you did a great job, and so thank you very much for testifying on this.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Welcome, Rep. Pease, and Senator Dooner, and then Representative Soter.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not necessarily a question, just wanted to thank you guys. And Brandon, I look forward to reading about you one day because I have no doubt you're going to accomplish great things in life. So thank you guys.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair. Brandon, I don't know if you're on social media. Maybe I'm going to get you in trouble. Or I'm going to put a lot of pressure on your parents. If you're not on social media, you're going to be a TikTok sensation talking about this. So, Doctor, I think you have your avenue for making awareness right there with Brandon, definitely. I spent my whole life in the food industry, and it's made my career. It's something that the food industry struggles with because of cross-contamination. You cannot produce things in a plant that airborne gluten is one of the biggest things that will make Brandon sick with his severity that he talks about. I have a couple questions. One, the legislation looking to not only make the ingredient aspect of it, but obviously funding available for some of this because the schools are going to have to figure out a way to either bring in sealed meals from a certified gluten-free facility or have systems in place in the kitchen, because it sounds to me if Brandon just gets into any kind of cross-contamination, it can make him severely sick. And then my second part of that question is, during you said you've been in many schools, is that the biggest problem that you see is the cross-contamination, the airborne gluten Passover?
Yeah, so actually when we did the study, we found that the biggest problem was actually that there wasn't communication between the administrators in the school that handle 504 plans and the cafeteria itself. So typically when you set up a 504 plan for your child with celiac disease, you're working with an assistant principal and a school nurse, but they don't know what the cafeteria does every day. And so they just assume that gluten-free meals are not available, and so they say just bring your meals from home. And then there's no information on the websites, and so the parents are just like, yeah, I guess I have to send meals from home. But over the 17 years I worked in pediatric hospitals, a large part of my job was to actually go to the schools and try and figure out, can the student eat safely? And in Massachusetts, what's really cool is that most Massachusetts school districts can safely feed kids with celiac disease and do have options. It's just that there's no line of communication or information just anywhere for families to get in touch with the right person. Like the food service director is not part of a 504 meeting, And so that's a really big problem. And so one of the things that at Boston Children's we would continue to ask for is when you schedule the 504 meeting, ask for the food service dietitian to be a part of that meeting so that you know what the process is. It's not hard. Schools in Massachusetts, and even at the cost point, they're able to, you know, within the reasonable cost, get gluten-free pasta, gluten-free chicken tenders, gluten-free pizza, gluten-free bread. They have actually changed all the meatballs to be gluten-free so that the kids, for even on the Asian meatballs, you know, Italian meatballs, they are all available gluten-free. It's really just this lack of information of how to get from you're diagnosed with celiac disease to getting enrolled in the meals and getting the meal to the student.
And as Mr. Chair said, this is higher education, and if there's any presidents and chairs, chancellors watching, they should be offering your son a full boat scholarship because he's fantastic.
That is a very good idea.
It's a good push, right?
It's a very good push. Yes, yes, yes. It's a very good push. Thank you, Representative. Anybody else? Oh, please, Vice Chair.
Well, thank you, Chair. So there's more than one way to get things done in the Commonwealth. There was legislation maybe 3 sessions ago, if not 4 sessions ago, to change the allergy protocols in restaurants so that they would, you know, always, because they previously, you know, ongoing basis would inquire, does anyone have allergies? But the new legislation was asking for having someone on staff that's trained, and also there was a 30-minute film that people would watch that was outdated, needed a new film. So that bill was filed and then refiled in another session, refiled in a 3rd session, and I can't recall if it was a 4th session or not, but what finally happened was that our Commissioner of Public Health enacted regulations which basically took care of everything that was in the bill. And when I sent him a thank you note, he called me back, gee, I hardly ever get a thank you so much. But so this is a matter, I would hope that this legislation goes through and is enacted into law, but I would say that reaching out to our Commissioner of Public Health about this, he could actually cause regulations to be promulgated that would have this happen. And so that's why I passed this on to you, so that this gets done, you know, one way or the other, either by legislation or by the Department of Public Health simply promulgating the regulations on its own. Yeah, welcome.
That's a beautiful testament to the urgency of this bill.
Yeah.
I don't see any other questions. Thank you so much for your time, Representative Badger. Thank you for leading. And Brandon.
Thank you, everybody.
Oh, can you show everybody what you just did? That is it. Okay. I think Representative Soter is correct about where you're headed. Friends, we are lucky to be joined online by Senator Joan Lovely, who is co-leading this with Representative Michelle Badger. Senator Lovely, we'd love to hear from you now.
Thank you, Madam Chair Comerford and Chair Rogers and members of the committee. I will be brief. I listened to the panel. It was excellent. It really does explain why we filed this bill. I want to say thank you to Rep. Badger for approaching me to file this bill on the Senate side. I was honored to do so. I also, although I do not have celiac disease as a diagnosis, I can't eat anything with wheat. So I know what these folks, young and old, go through every single day to try to eat a meal, especially if you're eating out, that is safe from gluten. And sometimes it can be very challenging. I also want to say thank you to Brandon. You know, as a young advocate who is also affected, these are the voices we need to hear from. So thank you to everyone. I do hope that the committee will give this bill a positive consideration. Thank you.
Senator Lovely, thank you so much for your leadership on this bill in partnership with Representative Badger. Any questions for the senator? I don't see any. Thank you, Senator Lovely. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
We have a second panel, friends in person. Dr. Maureen Leonard from Mass General, Dr. Dan Leffler from Beth Israel, Laura Garabedian, Dr. Laura Garabedian, who is for working at population medicine at Harvard Medical. Welcome, and thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Certainly a tough act to follow.
Really, I am sorry that you follow Brandon.
Yeah,
However,
thanks, Brandon.
we have faith in you.
Thank you so much. So good afternoon, chairs, members, and staff of the committee. My name is Dr. Maureen Leonard. I'm a pediatric gastroenterologist at Mass General Brigham for Children, and I'm the director of the Celiac Center there. So there I see children and adolescents living with celiac disease. And as Dr. Du mentioned, many families with celiac disease, they face barriers when trying to access school meal plans. From a clinical perspective, this challenge has very real health implications. So we heard that celiac disease is an autoimmune condition, and it affects about 1 in 100 individuals. And even just a small amount of gluten, if it's ingested by an individual with celiac disease, their immune system becomes activated, it causes damage in the small intestine, and they're not able to absorb calories and nutrients, and they're also, they develop symptoms, both gastrointestinal and other symptoms. And we heard the only treatment is a strict gluten-free diet. So for children, that means maintaining a gluten-free diet, not only in the home, but in the school, where they really spend a large portion of their day. So in my clinical practice, I often see how difficult this can be for families. So children rely on their school meals for a significant portion of their nutrition, and when safe gluten-free foods aren't available, many students may skip meals, they rely on snack foods, or they just also feel excluded from eating with their peers. So repeated gluten exposure, so just a crumb in small amounts, it can lead to persistent damage in the small intestine, and that ultimately leads to nutritional deficiencies, fatigue, abdominal pain, and impaired growth in children, which is a very big deal. It can also lead to their inability to concentrate and really fully participate in school. So it's really important that we think about the psychological impact as well. So children with celiac disease already have to be so careful about what they eat. And so when the information about whether they can eat at school isn't clear and available, it adds a lot of stress for the families and the children. So just providing centralized, accessible information about gluten-free and allergy-free meals, because I will emphasize that this isn't just for celiac disease, but allergens too. That really helps families make informed decisions and allows children to safely participate in school life. Personally, I know how hard this is. I too have celiac disease, and I have a 5-year-old son who has food allergies. He entered the school system this year, and despite my expertise and looking and calling, and despite my advocacy, I couldn't find the information that I needed, and it's still not there. And this is for tree nut and peanut allergies. So this is something that affects many, many children. So for these reasons, I strongly, strongly support and ask for your support of this bill, which ensures families can easily find clear information about medically necessary dietary accommodations, which is a really important step towards protecting their health and well-being for both children with celiac disease and food allergies. So thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you for your testimony. Please, Doctor.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Leffler. I'm an adult gastroenterologist at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and one of the founding members of the Celiac Disease Center there. So obviously, I'm an adult gastroenterologist. I don't treat kids. So the question could be, why am I here? What do I have to add to this? But as Dr. Leonard just described, celiac disease is a lifelong autoimmune condition. This is not a lifestyle disease. This is a disease with chronic injury to the intestine, chronic immune activation. And like any autoimmune disease, the longer it goes undiagnosed, the longer it goes untreated or imperfectly treated, the higher risk of complications, the harder it is to treat. And so unfortunately, a big part of my practice in adults is people who have not had good celiac disease control, either because they were not diagnosed until too late or because they were diagnosed and found it too difficult to maintain a strict gluten-free diet, which, as you've heard, is still the only treatment we have for celiac disease. And there are a lot of important ramifications of this. I see people with severe osteoporosis, fractures at a young age, certain types of cancers, malnutrition, malabsorption, skin rashes, even infertility and pregnancy loss can be a big issue in people with uncontrolled celiac disease. And the longer that goes in childhood, the higher risk there is that you're going to have to wind up seeing someone like me in clinic to talk about what we can do, how we can get this disease under control. And those are just the direct medical costs. As you heard, obviously if you're not feeling well, you're not going to perform well in school. We see a lot of people who just don't obtain their optimal school results, their economic viability. They have trouble going to college. They have to take time off. All of this has a real economic impact that lasts the rest of their lives. And this really is something that should be very treatable, should be very controllable with just the right access to good foods, the right information. And again, I think this is really something that, Massachusetts is already on the forefront of this. We're one of the best cities to have celiac disease in. There's good food opportunities. There's good medical care across the spectrum, something that most places really can't say, unfortunately, still. So I really think this is a great opportunity for Massachusetts to continue to lead the way in helping people with celiac disease or food allergies really obtain their optimal health, their optimal quality of life, their optimal ability to contribute to society. So I'm really, again, thank you. We really appreciate being here as a part of the celiac community. And we're very hopeful that this is a bill that can be supported. I really think it can be very impactful for a huge part of the celiac community, not just the patients themselves, but the whole families. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Please, Doctor.
Good afternoon. My name is Laura Garabedian, and I live in Needham, Massachusetts. I'm here today as a parent of a child with celiac disease. I'm also a faculty member at Harvard Medical School, where I teach and do research on health policy. I'm testifying in support of the SNACK Act with 2 C's, since it will help children with celiac disease access safe, gluten-free meals at school. My 6-year-old son, Charlie, was diagnosed with celiac disease when he was 3 years old. Thankfully, he's healthy and thriving, but our lives changed overnight with his diagnosis. While there's no cure for celiac disease, it can be managed with a strict gluten-free diet, which means gluten-free foods and no cross-contamination with gluten. Managing celiac disease is something that is constantly on our minds at every meal and snack. While we have a good system at home, eating outside of the home is difficult. Even though most restaurants and prepared food establishments have gluten-free options, they do not have procedures in place to eliminate cross-contamination, and their food is not safe for people with celiac disease. In addition to physical health, celiac disease takes a mental health toll and is often associated with anxiety due to fear of getting exposed to gluten and social pressures of needing to ask about special considerations and accommodations, or being in a situation where you can't safely eat with peers. Thankfully, due to federal law, schools are required to provide safe gluten-free food for children with celiac disease. Charlie started kindergarten this year, and we wanted him to get school lunch a few days a week so he could practice the routine of eating foods outside of the home and be comfortable eating at school. We're lucky. Our school district is known for being supportive of kids with celiac disease. For instance, Needham has all the school nutrition information and gluten-free procedures on one website, as the Act will require. However, even in our district, the process to make sure Charlie gets a safe and gluten-free school lunch has holes and is complicated. In the second week of school, we got a call from the school nurse that Charlie mistakenly got the wrong meal. Until then, Charlie hadn't had a gluten exposure that we knew about in over a year. If something like this is happening to us in one of the few districts in the state that has a high level of transparency around gluten-free meals in the school, I can't imagine how difficult it is for parents in other towns and cities in the state. The SNACK Act has many provisions that will make the process of accessing gluten-free meals at school easier for families and safer for children across the entire state. It requires schools to make information they already have accessible online and in one place. It requires school districts to make dedicated gluten-free meals and menus, and it will increase transparency of procedures for safe food handling and making sure kids get the right meal. One of my biggest fears as a parent of a child with celiac disease is how he will manage on his own as he gets older, particularly as he enters college. The SNACK Act will ensure that Charlie is easily able to find information on gluten-free options in the dining halls and access safe food. Finally, many families in the Commonwealth rely on the Universal School Lunch Program as a key source of nutrition for their children. It is vital that all families with children with celiac disease are able to navigate the school nutrition system and trust that their children get safe gluten-free meals at school. The SNACK Act will help us get one step closer to this goal. Thank you so much for your time and for supporting kids with celiac disease.
Thank you to the panel so much for your testimony and your expertise and weaving it in with your own personal stories. It's always what opens hearts and minds. Mr. Chair.
Yeah, that was great, and obviously to get 3 doctors who I'm sure have busy practices to come in the middle of the day is impressive and shows your commitment to the issue, and so it's very powerful testimony. It's very much appreciated, and do you think there'll ever be a cure? I know this is getting off the topic of the bill, but there won't be a lifeline. I don't know. Are there biotechs or pharmacists?
Yeah. So yeah, that is you're like playing right into my court here. So this is really my passion, honestly, and this is what I've been working on this issue.
By the way, or a cure or a treatment.
A treatment, right. So my personal opinion is that celiac disease is much like many other disorders like type 2 diabetes or reflux, where diet is a great baseline therapy, or or cholesterol, right? But it's not sufficient for everyone. And we do see people who are just incredibly sensitive to gluten exposures or have lifestyles that just do not allow for the level of gluten restriction that needs to be under control. So I am very, very hopeful. And in Massachusetts, like so many other things, it's really leading the way in biotechs and some of the research to do this. And actually, Dr. Leonard's site does a lot of these clinical trials for patients that are very hopeful. So I'm really hopeful that maybe not next year, maybe not in a few years, but in 5 to 10 years, we'll have at least treatments that, like a good cholesterol medication or like a good type 2 diabetes medicine, will augment the gluten-free diet and allow people to have better disease control. But I don't see them as replacing the gluten-free diet anytime in the near future. But
Great, thanks.
I'll just add that, we're here because it's so important to take multiple approaches right now. So some of my work is aiming to prevent celiac disease. I do a lot of work to try and help find the treatments, but that's going to take some time. We need help now to keep everyone who has celiac disease and food allergies safe, and so that's why we're here, and that's what's important while we do the other work.
Great, thank you.
Important. Questions for the panel? I think you've given us a lot of information. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, I think we're in for another treat. The third panel is Brandon Polterak. Forgive me if I said that in your last name incorrectly, Brandon. Naomi Corinne Bellissimo. And we have Elise Baer virtually to join you, I believe. Okay. I think they're online. Perfect. So who wants to go first? What do you think? Not you? Brandon wants to go first? Okay. So how about we do Brandon and then Naomi? Is that okay? And then we'll go to Elise? Okay. Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hello. My name is Brandon Polterak and I'm 12 years old. When I was 6, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. Like some people with celiac, I also have an intolerance to dairy. Because of that, I had to completely change my diet. It was like changing the lineup in a baseball game after a key player suddenly can't play. Everything has to adjust. If I eat even a tiny amount of gluten, my body reacts right away. I feel sick. Not just a little uncomfortable, actually sick. So I have to be very careful about what I eat. That means reading labels, asking questions, and sometimes just not eating at all if I'm not sure if something's safe. At school, this can be hard. Most kids can just go through the lunch line and pick what they want. I can't do that. Usually I have to bring my own food. That might not sound like a big deal, but it is. It makes me feel different. It makes me feel left out, like I'm not really a part of the group when everybody else is eating the same thing. At first, even my parents and I weren't always sure what foods were safe. That's why clear food labels matter so much. For kids like me, this isn't about preference. It's about our health. Safe foods are our medical treatment. If we don't have the right information, we can't protect ourselves. Right now, the information family needs is hard to find. It's in different places, different websites, or sometimes not even available at all. The SNACK Act fixes that. It makes sure schools put clear, easy-to-find information in one place. Things like ingredients, allergen information, and who to contact with questions. This doesn't create a whole new system. It just makes information that already exists easier to access, and that makes a big difference. When families understand what's safe, they trust school meals more, and when students feel safe, they can actually participate. This means eating lunch with friends, not feeling different, not sitting there wondering if something will make you sick. This bill helps students like me feel included in everyday school life. It helps us be safer, and it helps us feel like we belong. So I'm asking you to please support the SNACK Act, because something as simple as clear food labels can make a huge difference for kids like me and for many other students across Massachusetts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. I think the chair and I said that in unison. Naomi, do you want to go now? Can you scooch down a microphone? I know it's a far reach.
Hello, my name is Naomi Bellissimo Curran. I am 9 years old and I live in Needham, Massachusetts. One thing you should know about me is that I have celiac disease. You already heard what that is, so I'm not going to be super boring and repeat all of that. I would rather be in school doing math right now, but I'm here even though I have stage fright because this is important. I'm here to ask you to support the bill with way too many numbers after it, aka the SNACK Act. This bill would help kids like me learn what we need to be safe when eating in school. I was diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 6 years old in the summer after kindergarten. When I first started first grade, my parents packed lunches for me for the first month because they didn't see on the website that there were gluten-free options for school lunches. But after we did learn that there are gluten-free menus and where to find them, it's been pretty easy. There are always gluten-free options for me at school, and the lunch ladies are really careful to make sure I get safe food. It is very important for kids with celiac to have safe options to eat, or we can get pretty sick. That's happened to me a couple of times in the last few years when I ate gluten by accident, or even gluten-free foods that got cross-contaminated, like pizza from what used to be my favorite place in town. Now it always gives me stomach aches. I have to think about having safe food whenever I go to a friend's birthday party or when we go to restaurants and when we travel. It takes a lot of effort to think about this and make sure I'm always prepared with gluten-free food, like for birthday parties. We always have to get me some snacks and a GF cupcake so I can still be there and celebrate with my friends to be able to eat something too. That is why it is so important to know that I have gluten-free safe foods at school. That way I can focus on schoolwork and learning, and I don't have to spend time and effort thinking about whether I can eat safely. I can just eat the lunch of the day if I want, or if I want, I can go to the website and order my food ahead of time and find out what options are gluten-free and allergen-free. If I really wanted, I could even learn more about what procedures are used to take care of the food and keep it safe, and who I could talk to if I have a problem. But I know that I'm very lucky, and that not every kid with celiac is as lucky as me. Not every kid has that information about safe foods at school. That's why this bill is important. It would make sure schools put information on their website that could help kids like me and their parents know all about the food at their school, so kids like me can relax and focus on the important things at school, like learning and playing with our friends. But mostly playing with friends, because that's what I love most about school. Thanks for listening. Oh, and if you have any questions, please ask me, not my mom.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you so much. Let's hear from Elise, and then we'll ask questions and make applaud.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you so much for being here today. My name is Elise Byer, and I'm a student at Wellesley College. I was diagnosed with celiac disease when I was 3 years old, so there really hasn't been a time where I haven't been ultra conscious about what I can and cannot eat. Some of my earliest memories of school are very much so tied to food due to the fact that I would always be sent to school with a lunch from home, meaning I was missing out on Pizza Fridays or other exciting special menu lunch days. I would watch other kids eat school lunches, not fully understanding why I couldn't do the same. At that age, I didn't have the language to explain cross-contamination or ingredient sources, so I wasn't fully capable of explaining to my peers why I was not participating in school lunches. I just knew that if I did eat something from school, I would most likely get sick. Because of this uncertainty, I never ate school lunches growing up. My family and I couldn't trust that food was truly safe. Even when something was labeled gluten-free, there was always this lingering question of how it was prepared, what surfaces were used, and if the same utensils were used to prepare that food, which created a strong lack of clarity, making it too risky to eat school lunches. Now that I am older, I have learned how to advocate for myself, and I know what questions to ask. I know how to read between the lines of menus, and I know when something is probably safe and when it is not safe. But that knowledge came from years of experience, trial and error, and honestly, a lot of food anxiety, which really caused me to think about kids that are newly diagnosed navigating the school systems. A young child doesn't innately know how to question how food is prepared. If something is labeled gluten-free, they take that at face value. They trust the adults around them, and they trust the system that they're in. With celiac disease, gluten-free labeled foods do not always mean that proper precautions are taken. Without clear, transparent information, those kids are much more vulnerable to accidentally eating something that could harm them. Beyond health risks, there's also a social side of it. Food is such a central part of being a kid. Pizza parties, birthday treats, and holiday school events. This bill matters because it removes the uncertainty. It gives families and students the abilities to make informed decisions without having to guess or take risks. For me, navigating celiac disease has become a second nature, but it shouldn't have to be something children worry about when navigating school. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, and best wishes in this semester in college. All right, round of applause for this panel. Elise, Naomi, and Brandon, excellent, excellent work.
Yeah, that was great. So it's not just the Brandon show, it's the Brandon, and Naomi show now.
And Elise, yeah.
And Elise, yeah. Well, that was great.
Thank you so much.
You guys did such a great job, and both of you were amazing. And Naomi, if more people would do what you do, you don't want to bore us and just repeat. Believe me, the times that we get witnesses that just say what someone else said, and you did a great job, and you both did. And so thank you both very much. And
it was excellent, excellent. Any questions from our colleagues? Mr.
Is Elise still on with us?
Elise, are you still here?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Elise,
perfect.
I have one question for you because it's being at Wellesley College, and you said you started reading things between the lines. Can you just kind of dig into that a little bit more for us when you say read between the lines? So is it something that might say it's gluten-free, could be gluten-free, not clearly stated, or it is saying it, but it really isn't? So if can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, for sure. So at Wellesley College, I am on the dining hall plans, which is very similar to elementary or middle school food lines and things like that. So we do have a system of labeling foods as gluten-free. However, if I see that French fries are labeled as gluten-free, I'm kind of wondering, well, were those fried in the same oils as things that were breaded? Because breaded things tend to never be gluten-free.
Right.
So I kind of I feel like a second sense of seeing that something is labeled gluten-free, but then wondering, what is this food and how has it been prepared,
Okay,
So,
that's
yeah.
great. So I know we gave a lot of props to the kids here, but I just want to tell the parents you should be very proud of your children. So, very proud of them.
I completely agree. I was thinking the same thing. And I'm getting some texts from people who are watching and who are just blown away by the unbelievable testimony from the young people.
This thing's blowing up. We're going viral.
I know.
I want to make, Mr. Chair, I want to make a point of order that we have all children come to our testimony and just testify, period.
This is, I do think it's one of the most uplifting hearings we've had in a very long time because you are so excellent at what you do. Thank you so much, both of you and Elise. We have a next, and you can go back to your parents if you want. Well done, yes. We have Kristen Hoyt here to testify in person. Kristen, it's another hard act to follow, but we have faith in you. If you could just, scooch the mic. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
I think perfectly. It's more for our friends online.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you for having us here today and hearing all of our stories. My name is Kristen Hoyt. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner practicing here in the state of Massachusetts. I am here today in two capacities, as a clinician and also as a mother, advocating for my 2-year-old daughter who was diagnosed with celiac disease at just 18 months old. I am here to support Bills 2927 and 5012. I am here to raise awareness and share the story of those suffering with celiac disease, and to reiterate that for those suffering with celiac disease, a gluten-free diet is not a lifestyle choice, it is a medical necessity. The celiac community grows up navigating a world that is not designed with their safety in mind. From birthday parties to school cafeterias, the burden of managing celiac disease falls entirely on families, and when information is inconsistent, unavailable, or unclear, the consequences are not a minor inconvenience. They are painful, sometimes debilitating, and entirely preventable. I have a photo here that I would like to share with the 10 of you. If possible, we won't put it online. The photo was taken at a time that we did not know that the gluten my daughter was consuming was triggering a severe autoimmune reaction. You'll see in the photo she is visibly malnourished. A specialist at Boston Children's Hospital referred to the photo. She had wasting thighs. This is a term used to describe thinning, weakening, and loss of muscle mass in her legs. The image reflects a heartbreaking reality of what gluten exposure can do to a child with celiac disease. I hesitantly share this photo, not for sympathy, but to illustrate the seriousness of the condition and the urgent need for awareness and protection. It is essential that clear policies and procedures for safe food handling and allergen management exist in our schools and public spaces, and that those preparing food understand these risks. Prior to my daughter's diagnosis, I did not realize that even a crumb of gluten, measured as little as 20 parts per million, could trigger this cascading autoimmune reaction. This reaction, as you have heard here today, is enough to damage the small intestines and make it difficult, nearly impossible, for the body to absorb the nutrients children need to grow, learn, and develop. When schools fail to provide transparent, reliable information about what is being served and how it is prepared, students with celiac disease are forced to either risk their health or opt out of school meals entirely. This bill takes a straightforward and necessary approach. It requires schools to clearly communicate gluten-free and allergen-related policies. In doing so, it protects students and ensures that the Massachusetts Universal School Meals Program is truly accessible to every child, regardless of their medical needs. Thank you for hearing my story today. I encourage you to advance these two bills. Our students deserve nothing less.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Before you move that picture, this is live, so the committee can see that picture for sure, but we wouldn't want to hold it up here because we are live streaming.
I would just prefer not to have it online.
Of course, I got nervous, actually. So we are happy, the chairs in the committee are happy to share it, and deeply grateful that you would share it, but we should not do it from where you're sitting.
Right.
Madam Chair, is it possible that if she emails that to us and each of the committee members?
No, I would, I don't think so.
Because it would be private?
Yeah, we just don't, it's a personal thing. So we are happy to take it, we can take it through staff.
We can pass it through there, and then I will take it back. It's not for the record,
okay,
it's just
that's
for
fine.
today.
So if you wanted to pass it to Representative Pease, we can collect it over at the end.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Do we have questions? Thanks for allowing us to find a path. Thank you, Representative Pease. We're appreciating you.
Also, we've been joined by Rep. Arriaga and Rep. Hong, and thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
That's why I was
just make sure.
Private, because nobody can get our emails.
Right.
Wait for the next person to speak.
Is it? Madam Chair, is there any way this camera can turn?
Put it away, baby.
Maybe we'll just focus at the witness table.
Witness table?
Okay. All right, we're going to focus at the witness table as the picture is passed. Thank you for the care. It's appropriate. We have a next person online, please. Arti Saran Jain. They may not be here online. Is there anyone else who would like to testify individually or in a panel? All right, I don't see anyone. Before we go, can I have the name of the person sitting between Brandon and Naomi? Jonathan? No, Jonathan, I just want to say it's hard to sit and cheer for your friends. And we've appreciated you, even though you didn't testify, we appreciate you being here to cheer on your friends, maybe family. But we just really appreciate you. It's hard to get up there and testify. It's sometimes harder to sit and be of goodwill during testimony. And I've been very moved by you here.
Yeah, I would echo that. Great job. Great job.
It's very beautiful.
And we've been joined by Representative Wells. Great to see you, Representative Wells.
All right. Thank you so much, friends. I don't see any more comments or questions from my great colleagues. Thank you to Representative Badger and Senator Lovely for these bills. Thank you today for the testimony. Thanks to my great co-chair, Dave Rogers. And with that, we bring this hearing to a close.